Hello, everyone. Welcome to Suspense Magazine. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn, and I'm here today with author Francesco Paolo to talk about his new release, Left on Rancho. Welcome, Francesco.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. What a wonderful book. So different than anything that I've read before. I don't think
Okay.
I've ever read a book about cannabis, the cannabis industry. So I learned a great deal. But why don't you, before we get into the book, why don't you get us started telling us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Sure, sure. Again, thank you for having me, Tracy. So, again, Francesco Paola, I a little bit of background, which is important to inform the some of the characters in the book. I'm Italian, born in Italy, and raised in Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, and Melbourne, Australia, until I was 18, spending my summers in Italy with my family. And then I came to the States to go to college, and I've been here since. My career has been, this is my first novel, right? My career has been in tech. I've been working in tech for 25 plus years. In fact, I'm still working in tech today because it's a lot of fun, especially with what's going on with AI. Um, but yeah, so I will talk about later, how I came to write the novel. But um, I enjoy, traveling. I enjoy cooking. Since COVID, my wife turned me on to yoga, so I've become a yoga aficionado. Yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
No, that's great. You mentioned cooking. That came through in a couple places in the book, and it
Yeah, yeah.
made me want to go out and try those recipes too. So, because I'm a
Okay,
huge, you can even see it on my social media. I have pasta lover on my social
excellent,
media. So I just,
excellent.
yeah, I was salivating in a couple of places there. Um, so you'd mentioned that you came from the tech world. What
Yes,
enticed you to write? And congratulations, debut novel. That's a huge
thank you.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. A lot of folks don't get to this. They get discouraged, but I mean, it's wonderful that you have your first book out there. But can you
Mhm.
tell us what enticed you to write your first novel?
Sure. So, like I said, I've been in tech my whole career, and I'd sold my company back in 2021. And I was going to take some time off. I was going to go and spend some time in Italy and visit my family. And then I got a call from a friend, similar to what happened in the novel, which in the similarity stopped there, where he had a friend who was working in cannabis, and he needed some help with IT. They were going to launch a new product, and did I have some time to help out? I said, sure, I'll go take a look. And fast forward 2 years later, I became a full-time employee. I was in the midst of the cannabis world for those 2 years, and in tech, although I've worked in wonderful places like Korea, Japan, India, Singapore, and not a lot of happens in tech. I mean, it's kind of actually boring no matter what you read in the papers, right? So, but in cannabis, that completely was so different, right? Completely changed because you're dealing with some very, very wonderful people there as well. A little eccentric in some places, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And the business was something that I'd never, really experienced before, selling a commodity product in a very competitive market, which is illegal at the federal level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And spending a lot of time. I was commuting to California 3 weeks out of the month from New York, renting a car, getting into the rental car in the Ontario airport, driving over the Cajon Pass and going into the Mojave Desert, which is a completely wild and different landscape. And there's cannabis companies interspersed within private prisons and public, county prisons and what have you, in the middle of this wonderful, beautiful desert. And I said, there's got to be a story here, right? And um, you know, what helped was my wife is a published author. Her last two novels were actually published by Spark Press, the same imprint that is publishing my novel. So there's inspiration in the home, and she encouraged me to put pen to paper. And I read some wonderful, works by Stephen King, the book on writing, which I'm sure you've heard of, and
Yes.
Walter Mosley also has one.
Mhm.
This is when you write your first novel, and I just started putting pen to paper, and I finished the first draft in 7 months, and 3 years later, here we are. So that's kind of how it came to be.
Nice. So maybe you could jump into what Left on Rancho was about, and tell us a
Sure.
little bit about tell us a little bit about the title, how that came about, if you
Yeah.
had any input in that, or if that was your publisher, that sort of thing.
No, actually, interestingly enough, Tracy, the novel started with the title because I literally took a left on Rancho Road myself to go to the factory. And the left connotes sinister, left is sinistra in Italian, sinistra sinister, kind of dark and shady. I said, okay, that's a kind of a great title, and so let's spin a noir story around that, which is kind of where it came to be. And you asked in terms of the novel. Um, Andrew Eastman is the protagonist, and I can go into the novel now if you'd like,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
kind of give you a little synopsis.
that'd be great.
He, like myself, gets a call from a friend. In his case, it's this childhood friend from high school. He is down and out. He lost his last company. He's kind of broke. He's living in San Francisco, but he's kind of selling everything off to pay off the debts. And he said, "I've got nothing to lose. Let's go help a friend." uh, Drives into the Mojave Desert, into this completely new environment for him. It's not software, it's a commodity product. And he starts to ask questions and realizes that, this is kind of a messed up market because 70% of the weed that you buy in California comes from the illegal market. The regulators are more interested in punishing the legal folks, right, that are trying to meet the rules and spending money to meet the rules. There's no
Mm.
eradication of this the contraband weed, um, and uh, and companies don't make any money. I mean, it's near impossible to make money, and so Andrew's thinking, well, why? I may as well. I'll help my friend. He's got to raise some money. He needs me to run the company. Asking these questions, but also the fact that bodies start popping up in the desert. I mean, these bodies are not just any bodies; they are migrants that have escaped from the nearby private prison. And so I tried to fuse the narrative within the story to have cannabis and immigration kind of merge into one plot, and I think I did that pretty well. Um, uh, he finds out that there's a contraband product that is similar to their killer app product. He works with his buddy Mike Vargas, the factory manager, and Ish, who is in sales and who's been on the legal and illegal side of the industry. And things starts happening to Andrew. He falls in love first of all with
Mhm.
Renee, but he also gets beat up by goons who are looking for Charlie. He gets chased off the road by a red Buick, and he wakes up in this strange room, and he doesn't remember what happened the night before. And so I just felt that giving kind of taking Andrew on this journey was a great way not only to tell a story but also to highlight the challenge that exists in cannabis, in the cannabis industry. So
I really love that you included a love story. I thought that that was just a nice touch. You don't always get in a thriller or a suspense novel, and
sure, sure,
I
sure.
loved it. As a
Thank you.
romance lover, it was dear to my heart. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
You had mentioned, or I shouldn't say you had mentioned, but I think on your website you categorize Left on Rancho, and if you have the book there with you, please hold it
yeah.
up. It's such a great cover. Yeah, it's nice. You described it as a contemporary noir
Hmm.
set in the Wild West of California's cannabis world.
Yeah, yeah.
For those who might not be aware of what this term noir is, can you tell us a little bit about what makes a story
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So one little piece of background. I'm a big film lover and a big lover of mystery film noir. So the term noir comes from film noir, which is a type of movie that came out in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s. Started to come out then. Black and white, moody, murder, devious characters, and it's also applied to stories where the locale is kind of isolated. There's mystery surrounding the characters. There's mystery surrounding the stories, and the characters are not always the best of people, right? And so I said, look, there's a story to be told, cannabis and immigration, first of all, and we fuse the noir narrative or noir ambiance around that story. I think I can make it work, right? And so if you look, there's the good guys and there's the bad guys in the story, right? Then the bad guys are various shades of deviousness and corruption. And so that's where the term comes from. And you know, if you look also, the reason why I use the term Wild West is because, like, I compare it to the gold rush in 1849 in San Francisco. I compare it to any boom or bubble, because cannabis was the hot ticket. Cannabis was the hot investment in 2018 and 2019. And then it kind of deflated from there because the reality of the situation hit in. But when it first was booming, it was like a Wild West. You have a Wild West setting, which is a cactus laden desert, right, in the middle of nowhere. You have this protagonist riding in the town. He starts to wreak havoc by asking questions and doing things that haven't been done because he's upending the status quo. And so if you think about Westerns like Pale Rider, like High Plains Drifter, the loner comes to town, creates massive havoc, upends the status quo. And that's, again, why I use the term Wild West, and why noir, I think, is the right description for it.
Yeah, no, I love it. It brings these visuals to mind right away. I thought it was a great way to describe it for sure. Um, Andrew, it seems like you and Andrew have a lot of similarities going there. Did you do that on purpose, or did that just kind of come out in the writing?
Yeah, so uh, a little bit of both. So first, let me clearly say this is a complete work of fiction, right? So I did not stumble across dead bodies in the desert when I worked in cannabis.
Thank you for
I did not
clarifying.
deal
I
with a
was a little
private
worried.
prison, right? So, um, but there's really three things that anchor the character, and those three aspects are from me, right? One is the fact that Andrew is multicultural. He grew up in Southeast Asia. He was exposed to different cultures. I describe him as a chameleon, being able to adapt to different situations. So that's an important aspect of his character. Um, the second part is around cannabis, right? So I spent 2 years in cannabis. I'm in the bowels of the cannabis industry, and that was important for that knowledge to come through, and for Andrew to understand the various concepts. And obviously that he's got a tech background because of the discipline that he brings to his role, and because of that discipline, he starts uncovering things that people that have been working in the cannabis industry don't really know. So I would say those are three things, and the other aspects of it, and this is clearly my point of view, as you can tell from the novel. Um, Andrew's view of the cannabis market and Andrew's view of immigration, those are obviously mine as well.
Yeah.
Um, but everything else, it just came out of the writing. It just came out of the writing as you develop the characters. It made sense to have him do certain things. It made sense for him to say certain things that may not necessarily have come from someone like me. But I would say those are the three foundational aspects that transcend, myself and the character of Andrew.
Oh, that's great. Is there is there anything now that you have the book, it's soon to be published, is there anything that you're hoping that readers will take away from this story?
Sure, sure. I would say, hopefully first, and I'm glad you did. I hope they enjoy the story. I think it's a nice journey that lays out what it's really like to be in cannabis. And by the way, I did a lot of research before, while I was writing it as well, and there aren't that many books that talk about the cannabis industry. I mean, I mean, I think the greatest book I've read that involves cannabis is Dennis Johnson's Already Dead, right? And a very different kind of story, but again, marijuana is kind of in the center of it. Um, so that's one. The second, I would like people to come away empathizing and sympathizing with the good guys in the story, right, and disliking the bad guys. I mean, and hopefully I did a good job of that. But most important, I would say, is like you who didn't know anything about cannabis, is people come away and understanding that first and foremost, it should be legal. It should absolutely be legalized, and states have done not such a good job of doing it. And until they fix those problems, which is fund the entities to enforce the law, there will always be a legal product. And until the federal government comes in and makes it legal at a federal level, we will always have these problems where states like Colorado, who have legalized cannabis for the longest, are actually doing okay, but California and New York, where I live, it's an absolute disaster.
Mm.
So that's the third thing. And the fourth thing, and most important, is the immigration issue. Um, Private prisons make money on a prisoner on a daily basis, right? They are treated as widgets. They're not treated as
Mm.
humans. There's no compassion. And I'm hoping that people understand that something has to be done to make sure that the poor folks that are coming across the border for many, many good reasons are treated humanely and with compassion. And hopefully, we don't turn back the clock in January. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, what would you say is your favorite part of the writing process?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tracy. I would say the discipline.
Okay.
And I learned this from my wife. I mean, like I said, she's got 4 novels out the door, and every author that writes about the process of writing says the same thing. And my favorite part is the discipline. You have to carve out the time. You have to be committed to. I was committed to a certain minimum word count, no matter how bad the writing
Mhm.
was, and you just get it out there, and then the next day you just delete it all and start over, which is part of the process. That's the most fun, and I enjoy still doing that today. Right?
Yeah. Good. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. There is something about having that thing to go to at a certain time. I do
Hmm.
too. I have certain little rituals that I do, which is just
Yeah.
crazy because I've never done that for any other job that I've ever had.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Don't tell anyone.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As we bring the interview to a close, can you tell us what's up next for you? Do you have any projects that
Sure.
fun projects that you're working on that you can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just finished the first draft of my second novel earlier this month,
Great.
and so it's sitting, away. I'm going to let it fester for about a month and a half, and in the meantime, I've written some short stories, and I've actually come to love writing short stories because every single word counts, right?
Yeah.
Every single word is must. There is no superfluousness to the writing. So I've written a few. One I submitted to an indie public magazine and it got a finalist mention in the mystery category, which, I mean, first short story
Great.
submitted. Okay, great. That
Congratulations.
was fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to keep doing that. And I've also written 3 um, 10-minute film shorts,
Oh.
which I call a New York trilogy. And I'm hoping that my nephew, who is a aspiring filmmaker, who's filmed some shorts, takes it up as a project in 2025, and
Uh,
we'll see.
well, we'll keep an eye on that. That sounds cool. I've never heard of
Yeah,
anything quite like that before.
yeah, it's quite fun.
Well, thank you so much, Francesco, for being with us today. Left on Rancho releases on February 11th. Do I have the date correct on that?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, all right. And it'll be available wherever books are sold.
Correct.
Um, where is the best place for readers to connect with you online?
The best place is you can contact me. There's a contact page on my homepage, francescopaolo.com. And just send me an email, drop me a line. You can also Google me. You'll find me on LinkedIn because like I said, I still have a full-time job. So any which way is fine.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for today. Thank you again for joining us on Suspense Magazine. Thank you, Francesco, and goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Tracy.